of a memory just tumbling into your brain out of the blue. A song plays, a phrase is said, or you could just be washing the dishes and boom, there it is. It can bring a tear or a smile, but it always catches you unprepared. I wonder if Peter had that experience. The new life of the disciples has been destroyed with the death of Jesus, and Peter decides to go back to what he knows, fishing. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 4 to be exact, Peter is called by Jesus to follow him after an unproductive day of fishing. I wonder if Peter goes back to that day, his heart and head filled with memories as the nets come up empty again. Cast the net to the right side of the boat and you will find some, the stranger says. I wonder if a memory came to Peter as they threw the nets out again. So much has happened since that day. And then, boom, they have so many fish that they're not able to haul the nets into the boat. This time, Peter realizes that Jesus is there on the beach. And just like that fateful boat ride in which he abandoned his fellow disciples to walk on the water, Peter abandons them again, only this time to swim to shore and Jesus. When they all get to dry land, Jesus is making breakfast for everyone. One wonders if the fire being used to cook breakfast takes Peter back to another fire, one which he stood by while warming his hands and denying he knew Jesus. Not once, not twice, but 3 different times, just as Jesus told him he would. Back then, before Jesus' arrest, Peter proclaimed he would die with Jesus. This time Peter is awfully quiet. One wonders if they all were taken back to that fateful night as Jesus offers them bread again. We always talk about Jesus asking Peter 3 times if he loves him, the number of times Peter denied Jesus. But the entire scene is set to take us back to the ministry of Jesus with his disciples. It's a vignette of memories. And of course, yes, there are the questions. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? If you remember, Jesus had renamed Simon. He became Peter, the rock. And upon this rock I will build my church. But this time Jesus uses his given name of Simon and offers him a way out, an option to regain the life he had before those years of discipleship. Do you love me more than these? In English, the word love is the same as if we were talking about our spouse, our friend, or our morning coffee. And depending on the mornings, though not necessarily in the order. But in the Greek, they are different. In the Greek, Jesus used the word agape, sacrificial love, the highest love there is. And Simon responds with philia, which is close friendship. Philia is close, but not quite agape. Again, Jesus uses the word agape. And again, Simon responds with philia. And then, and I love this, Jesus meets Simon where he is at and uses the word philia with that third question. Peter doesn't seem so confident this time around, ready to do battle with Rome and sacrificing his very life for Jesus. He knows that this rock shattered when he was put to the test. And then Jesus predicts Peter's death. Most scholars believe that Peter died between the years of 44 and 64. To the best of our knowledge, the Gospel of John wasn't written until sometime between the years 90 and 100. We don't have a solid record of how and when Peter died. But church tradition teaches that he was put to death by Nero during the Christian persecution after Rome was burned to the ground. He is crucified, arms outstretched, but upside down, so as not to die in the same way as his Lord. Whether the author of John already knew how Peter died, or if Jesus does predict his death, Christian tradition shows a very different Peter than the one sharing breakfast on the beach, who can only profess filial love. A Peter whose faith has grown and deepened as he preached the gospel of Jesus and saw yet again God working within the world. He becomes Peter the rock and lives down the awful betrayal. Ultimately, he does stand firm as a leader in the church, and he does begin to show agape, sacrificial love, over and over during his time of ministry. Faith doesn't happen in an instant, ever. Oh, sure, there can be that first emotional blush of choosing Jesus, but true faith is something that develops over a lifetime of challenges and decisions. We come to a fork in the road, brought there either by heartbreak or worldly glory, and we have to choose which road we will travel. Every fork is a challenge to our faith, and which road we choose will be defined by who or what we have centered our life around. The picture painted in Revelation, which we heard, is one in which all creation surrounds a lamb that has the markings of being slaughtered. The slaughtered lamb being an obvious allusion to Jesus. Earlier in the chapter, John the Elder describes this lamb as having 7 horns and 7 eyes. 7 being the number of completion and wholeness or holiness. This lamb is at the center of all creation's worship, and all creation sings as one voice in praise of the God who loved us even when we rejected that love. And that's our challenge. Unless we have God at the center of our lives, our faith will wither and remain childish, not childlike, centered around superstitions and our ego. We humans have a nasty habit of putting ourselves at the center of life. We really do. We feel insecure, so we lash out at those who seem to have it all together. We believe that we are the only ones who know the right way to live, and so manipulate and accuse in order to get our way. We are frustrated frustrated that we are not being elevated to the glory we think we deserve, and so we tear down those whose lives increase our insecurity. We can center our lives around money, or fame, or adulation, or political power. We're seeing a lot of that these days. All kinds of people or things can become our idol. None of them will increase our faith in God, however. None of them. Peter did not promise God what he was not able to give. It's apparent his fall from grace has softened his rough edges and made him a bit more honest about himself. And so it goes with us. Unless we are honest with who we are, we will inevitably find ourselves in conflict with worldly values unless God is at the center of our lives, as God's values are vastly different from what our current society views as important. Every choice in our life will either deepen our faith and bring us closer to God, or closer to feeding our own egos. It's the same with Saul before he becomes Paul. Saul's bravado and self-righteousness is very reminiscent of that early Peter, don't you think? Before Jesus steals Saul's eyesight. But it is the faith of Ananias that is stunning to me. He follows the urgings of Jesus straight to the one who is persecuting the church. Now that's some courage. Without Ananias centering God in his life, who knows where the early church might be? That is the kind of faith we should all emulate. Who knows what miracles of God would happen if we all lived our faith as fully as did Ananias. Peter knew he wasn't yet ready to die for Jesus, and so Jesus met Peter where he was. But God didn't leave him there, nor will God leave any of us where God initially finds us. God will meet us where we are, right here and right now. But the Spirit of God will always invite us to a deeper life of faith with God as its center. I'll warn you, it won't be an easy life, and many people will misunderstand why we do what we do, but it will be well worth it, as a life of faith is worth all the glory and honor in the world. Today, we are once again invited to worship God alone. Not because God needs the glory, but because without God at our center, all of life becomes a poor replacement of what it could become. Amen.